Alexis Wineman, it is so lovely to meet you and see you in virtual reality. You were Miss Montana in 2012, and you're still as beautiful as always.
Oh, thank you.
And you were also the first person that was in a Miss American pageant that was diagnosed with autism. Am I right?
Yes, as far as we know, there could have been
Okay.
someone who was undiagnosed that competed, but
Yes,
yeah.
that is actually very true. Do you want to tell me a little bit about your journey in the diagnosis process of autism diagnosis journey?
It was a long one. um, it was, when I started showing symptoms around the age of 2 and 3, which is when most symptoms kind of come to light for young children. Autism wasn't really a word in our vocabulary. We didn't like, we've heard about it, we'd seen the ads on TV for organizations, but we never really knew much about it. In the middle of nowhere, Montana, obviously there's no resources for it or really much at all. So it never really came up much. It just was kind of shrugged off as, oh, she's going through a difficult phase, or oh, she's just a bit delayed, or and just kind of, they try to throw kind of every excuse at it before they actually wanted to admit something may be wrong. Not my parents. My parents kind of knew from the get-go something's up, but without the support or anything, they just kind of didn't know what to do. They took me to a therapist. They took me to whoever they could. They took me to my minister at one point, and that was actually fun. But they didn't have me, exercised or anything, I swear.
That's good.
But even he came to them and he's like, this is not something I can help with. He had a suspicion, but they eventually took me to a doctor. Excuse me, I forgot to put my phone on silent. They eventually took me to a doctor who was, how do I say, a moron. And
how do I say this nicely?
No. And I remember that very, very well because he didn't look at me once. It was just,
I'm sorry.
He kept on asking me a bunch of questions that had a million different answers to it. So of course, as a kid, I was like, which one do I go with?
How old were you? Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh gosh, I don't even remember how old I was. It was probably, I was either 9 or 10 at the time.
Sure.
And, by that point I was having meltdowns nearly every day. I was so overwhelmed. I was getting behind in school. It got to the point where people were blaming my parents for just being horrible parents. Like this was their fault, even though they had 3 other children that proved otherwise. It was, but they were at a loss. They didn't know what to do. And of course, at that point, parents are constantly blaming themselves, thinking like, maybe this is my fault. Maybe I did something wrong. So my mom is just looking for help anywhere. So we came to this doctor and he didn't look at me the entire time. So of course my hard-headedness was like, well, fine, I'm not going to look at you either.
Exactly.
And so I stared at the clock and I was in there with him for about 7 minutes and 58 seconds.
What?
Yes. And he declared me depressed.
You're joking.
Yes. He made a very serious
at
diagnosis
9 or 10 years old for
Yes.
7 minutes of observation.
Nearly 8.
Not
Give
even
him the credit what he
observation.
deserves. It was nearly 8 minutes.
Sorry. But let's not give him the credit of not looking at you because he
didn't know what I looked like.
What?
And so they put me on Zoloft.
Oh, I'm sorry.
As a prepubescent child, they put on Zoloft. And I'll tell you right now, I don't remember my 6th grade year of school. I don't remember. I was blacked out the entire time.
That is horrible.
I try to remember it. I don't remember anything that happened that year. I remember when they started tapering me off of it because little bits will just kind of show up in my memory. There's one time a friend of mine got embarrassed by her dad coming into class And I remember that very vividly, but there's nothing before or after that.
Mm.
But my mom said that she will never be more thankful that I got a really bad case of the flu that year, because we went into our family doctor, and our family doctor is the first introduction to the South I ever had. And he's a nice Southern gentleman from Arkansas, and he's just the sweetest can be. And he knew all of us Wineman kids, so we were like, his surrogate children as well. He was really close with our family, and of course he asks all the doctor questions. How tall are you? How much weight has she gained over? What medication is she on? My mom told him. This man, I've never seen him upset. My mom said he was terrifying when he told her, and she told him what I was on.
Yeah.
Because not necessarily that it was Zoloft, it was the amount I was on. Apparently I was enough to medicate an adult male.
What? This is
Yeah.
so dangerous.
Well, that's one of the reasons I just can't remember that year. It was just frying my brain. And so they started tapering me off of it. And my mom's freaking out, thinking, how could I let this happen? And she blamed a lot of it on herself, and it wasn't her
I'm
fault.
sorry.
She trusted,
Yeah,
she
exactly.
trusted the doctors. She didn't know, and she realized her limitations as a parent. She's like, I don't have all the medical answers. I don't know what's going on, so I need to trust the people who do. And she just happened to run into a moronic doctor who God knows how.
Did he continue practicing? Do you know anything about?
I don't. That's just it. It's like because of this, I don't even remember that doctor's name. I don't know who that was, and so I try to look him up. I try to think as hard as I can to figure out who he is. I don't know who he was.
Maybe it's better just to forget about him. But I mean, hopefully, he's not still in practice.
Well, my mom. Later on, when we were doing the Miss Montana tour and doing a whole bunch of like conventions and stuff, she just got real quiet at one. And my mom loved going to those. She was like, loved learning, kind of like, oh, this is how you think. Oh, is this why you don't like bright lights? Oh my God. Like she's learning all this stuff about me that I could never verbalize what was wrong. One time she just got real quiet. And then finally we were on our way back home and I was like, what's gotten into you? Apparently she saw that doctor's wife.
Oh,
and, yeah. So she just
traumatic experience.
Yeah. But but they started tapering me off, and of course my mom is just like, well, I need to make sure not only my daughter's okay from all of this, but I need to actually find out what truly is the problem. And so she started shuttling me all across the state of Montana, which is not a small state. She's just shuttling me everywhere, and we have an appointment with the pediatric neurologist, but that guy's waiting list was so long, it took 8 months to actually go see him.
Oh, it's still like that, eh?
He was the only pediatric neurologist in the state of Montana.
Sure.
And then he moved. So there was actually a time where there was no pediatric neurologist in the entire state.
What? So many
I meet anyone who's planning on going into that field, it's like, go to Montana. You'll have a monopoly over it. Just go. It'll be great for business. In the meantime, she's taking me, getting as many second opinions as she can. She's making sure I'm okay. And of course, I'm a kid. So I'm thinking like, I am horribly sick because I'm going all to these doctors.
I'm sorry.
I'm dying.
Yeah.
But we finally get in and my parents find out I have autism. And most parents hear that and they're devastated by that news. They're like, oh my gosh, like my child is not going to have a leg up in this world. What's going to happen? My parents at this point were like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Once they had the answer, they're like, okay, we know what she has. We can find the resources she needs. We can hit the ground running. By this point, I was like, I don't care anymore. I don't care anymore. It doesn't matter. I was just mad at the world. And so like my parents are constantly pushing me, and it gets to the point where I don't even remember I have autism anymore, because it's that much of a non-issue for me, because I'm like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. My first impressions are done with. I'm basically an adult now at the ripe age of 11. I was 11 years old when I was finally diagnosed.
Yeah, and you went through so many different
Yeah, at that
avenues.
point, it was just like, I have gone through so much
Mm.
crap at that point. I was like, who cares?
What made that better, that transition better? What helped you? Because it seems like your parents took it and they wanted to try different things. Was it the
Well,
pageants or
it was their insistence. It
okay.
was them constantly, they straight up was like, okay, we have this. And I was like, okay, sweet, I don't have to try anymore. And they're like, the heck you do. They constantly were getting me out of my comfort zone. They and my siblings, my entire family was like, you have this, but it's no excuse. Like, you are going to be a wonderful member of society. Yes, you have this thing, but this thing doesn't have you. You're going to, take this world and kick its butt. And they got me involved in, extracurricular activities. They were getting me out of my comfort zone. I was never allowed to be at home and just to sit. I had to be doing something. And it was really just that made me realize, like, oh, I got this. It just kind of like junior year of high school, it just hit me. I was just like, oh, I'm fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. Like, this doesn't make me any less of a person. I'm not broken. I'm not damaged. At least not in this way. I'm good. Like, I can do this.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so important to have such a good support system. And I feel like your parents really just hit the ground running, and they were just like, okay, let's try and expose Alexis to different things, see what she likes and what she even doesn't like. Let's just push her into that.
Pretty much.
Gotcha.
No, I remember my older sister Danielle. I had a lot of delayed speech, and so I constantly tell people I am a speech therapy dropout. I never finished. I got so fed up with it, I never finished. And at 9 years, I was so close, and then I was like, forget this, I don't need it anymore. But she wanted me to get involved in the speech and drama team. All of my family is a dramatic bunch, and so of course they got into drama. And she wanted me to get involved. My whole family wanted me to get involved, and she sat me down and actually talked to me about it. And I was like, I can't talk well. Like, of course I can't do this. No one's gonna understand what I'm saying. And she's like, that's okay. There's still an event in speech and drama for you. And I was like, really? And so she's like, yeah. And I was like, so I became a mime.
Oh, cool.
I'm a trained mime.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Later on in college, that I got a real kick out of that, because I did a critical thinking class, and the professor was just like up doing his lecture, like, you never know what like is gonna come out of people. You never, like, who here is like professionally trained in mime? And I was like, he's like, for real? I was like, yeah. And he's just like, did you have to serious? And I pull up pictures, and I'm like, oh yeah, here's me in that like white makeup, like, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. There's always a job for you here in Portugal. There's a lot of there are a lot of mimes, and I promise you they make a lot of money.
It'll be years later when we meet each other again, and I'm just on the street making boxes.
Awesome. Oh my word, I will pay for your ticket to come here. Please come and mime. Honestly, I think that if you can make mime a little bit less scary for young kids, because I find them quite scary if they start moving.
What was scary, the scariest thing was out of, you do several rounds in speech and drama, like, well, you perform in front of several different judges, and in between, everyone from every event just kind of congregates in one area, and we hang out. There's a hacky sack going somewhere, and some dude pulls out a guitar out of nowhere, and it's just a big powwow until the next round starts. The mimes are the loudest people in that group, and that terrified me. I was like going off of stereotypes, and I get out there, I'm still in my makeup because I have to keep it on, and this dude just gets too like right here and just starts talking to me about video games very loudly. I'm like, what the heck is going on? my world no longer makes sense.
So back to the pageants part. Was that part of your interest? Was it something that you found interesting from a young age? How did you get into pageants?
I didn't. No, I would
Is
never.
this the right Miss Montana I'm speaking to?
Yeah, 100% it is. I told my fellow Miss America contestants, it's like, I really shouldn't be here. Because I was with all these women, it was like, it's my dream. I grew up watching them, I admired them. I was like, not me.
Oh, that's
I never
awesome.
was interested in pageants. My family had a big involvement with a program called Distinguished Young Woman, or what was previously known as Junior Miss. And it was a scholarship program. My mom was a chairman and everything like that. And I thought it was the dumbest thing in the world. Anytime like Miss America or Miss USA would come on TV, my dad, my brother, and the dogs and I would hide in the basement until it was over. I never had any interest in it. I wasn't the dress girl. I hated makeup. I just never found it interesting. What I did find interesting was going to school. I wanted to go to college because at one point I was so hopeless and depressed about just how life had treated me up to a certain point that I thought I was going to drop out of high school. I wasn't going to get my diploma. I was never going to go to college because I figured that's what people with special needs did. I never thought I had a future besides living with my parents for the rest of my life. And by the time I was in my senior year, that had completely switched on its head. I was like, I've accomplished so much more than I ever thought was possible for someone like me. And I'm wondering about all these other trailblazers in the community. I'm like, gosh, I really was wrong about this. I need to start thinking about a future that I never thought was even possible for me. The problem is, by that point, I had 3 other siblings in college. There was no money left over for me to go to school. And so I remember I had accompanied my mom to a doctor's appointment. And of course, in Montana, that means driving 3 hours from where you live. But we're driving and my mom kind of makes this aware to me. She's like, "You're going to college." It's like, "Yeah, I'm going to college." It's like, how are we going to afford that? And I was like, I don't know. Well, luckily my mom worked in the grant section of the high school. Like she's the one who's kind of a whiz at finance. So she started telling me about all these scholarships that I could possibly get. She's like, "Oh, well, there's this, and you've already earned this one. There's this community service one, and over here, like there's this one." And she's like, "Miss Montana," and over like then there's this one, and we get. And I was like, "Okay, well, yeah." And then my mom knew how I felt about pageants. That's why she just briefly brought it up and moved right on.
But she planted the seed.
She planted the seed. Well, she knew I really wanted to go to school, but she knew that was a long shot. And we're sitting there, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do that." And she's like, "Which one?" I was like, "Miss Montana." We nearly end up in a burrow pit on the side of the road. How fast she swerved that car. And the amount of breakage and acceleration she did at the same time.
She's so excited.
No, she just was like, "That's not what I was expecting at all." And she just turns to me, she's like, "Excuse me?" And I'm like, "I mean, yeah, I want to go to school, and you know, that we have all the stuff for that at home. I got my old prom dress, we have a swimsuit, we're good to go, we can do that." Like
that's all you need. Prom dress.
It was in my head, that's all. In my head, in my knowledge of pageants, that's all we did need.
Oh, this is awesome.
So I was like, "Yeah, let's just give it a shot. And if I hate it, we won't do it again." And she's just sitting there like, what? No way. This is all it took.
Should have tried this years ago.
Well, I had participated in the Junior Miss program, but that was not all that fun to me. And there was a whole pressure to that too, because my older sister has had to compete and won. And I did not. And so I was really disheartened by that. I just kind of felt like the disappointment of the family after that. And I was just like, but that wore off real quick. I was like, I was never excited about that. Like, who cares? I still got some scholarships from it. I should be thankful for it.
Yeah.
So Miss Montana happens and we're doing it. And I'm having a lot of fun. And my goal is to make top 8. That's all I want to do. There's 11 women competing for Miss Montana. And Miss Montana is also a pageant where there's no locals, which is very strange when it comes to a Miss pageant. Like for Miss Alabama, for instance, you got to compete for your local and then maybe a county, and then you'll go to state. Whereas you show up to state in Montana and be like, where are you from? I was like, Cut Bank. She's like, congratulations, you're Miss Cut Bank. I was like, oh, that was easy.
Do I get a scholarship for this?
There was like 3 Miss Glendives, and I'm like, how does that turf war happen? I want to know.
Oh my word. Okay, but when you got there, how did you train for this? Did your mom help you? How did this?
My mom told me what to expect, and
Okay.
she helped me out, but I really didn't train much for it because I had a strategy going in. At the time, I'm not sure if this is still true, but you get $850 just for competing. You get a scholarship just for competing. So my strategy was, I'm just gonna show up. And
already winning.
The great thing is, until you're either 24 or 26, I don't know the rules right now, until you're 24, you can keep on trying. So every year I was just gonna show up until I aged out, and I would have had a pretty penny to it. And then I won, and I could no longer do it. Once you win, you got to stop doing it.
Oh, that is awesome though. That's such a good story and unexpected in the same.
Yeah, and the whole time I was at it was just a really, really great experience because like I got to I love talking about myself. The only thing I wish I would go back is that we chose autism as a platform because I could speak from firsthand knowledge from it. I wasn't actually all that knowledgeable about the platform itself. I just could give like, if I can do it, so can you sort of a situation. It was very much just Uncle Sam pointing in the poster, just like, hey. But if I could go back, I would love to be more researched and more eloquent about, and I did learn a lot throughout my year. I just wish I approached it with more ammunition than I did.
But you've done a lot since then for autism advocacy and helping people. I sat in with one of your talks that you did. It was a live talk, and it was a free talk that you had, and it was awesome. You just spoke about your lived experience, but also just to give tips and strategies for parents. So I really appreciate everything you're doing. And I really appreciate your story, the way that you tell it so candidly as well. That's awesome.
Hey, I find that people will listen a lot more if you make them laugh than when
that is true. That is definitely true. I was going to ask about the interest, but seeing that it wasn't really an interest of you to go into pageant.
I was just broke. That was my interest. I was very poor.
Maybe that's the way to go. If you're broke.
I enjoyed my time. Do not get me wrong. I enjoyed it. I went into Miss America and I came out of it with 52 amazing older sisters. It's a sisterhood. It was hilarious too, because I was also not only the first person with autism, and the girls were very, very like mindful and very nice about that, and they most of them respected my boundaries, and or if they didn't know about it when I told them, they were still very respectful. But I was also the youngest one to compete that year.
Oh, really?
Most of the girls were in their 20s, and I had just turned 18 maybe a week before I competed for Miss Montana.
Oh, wow.
And so everyone's talking about like, oh yeah, I'm on my way to medical school. Oh, I graduated recently this year. I was like, I went to prom. Cool.
I finished high school.
Yeah.
Do you feel that maybe because there wasn't that much pressure on you that you were able to enjoy it more? Maybe.
I really do think about that. But the thing is I did put a lot of pressure on myself. Everyone was like, oh, it's just incredible that you're here. It's you just by being here, you've won. And I do agree with that at some point. However, just showing up isn't the work. The work is putting your all into it, making sure that, and I think that people get, especially people on the spectrum, get this, and a lot of parents at these conventions I go to and these conferences are guilty of this, and I've seen it. It's what I call the bless their heart raising of the kids. It's just like, oh, well, they have autism, so what can you do? It's like, there's plenty you can do.
Exactly.
I was raised, I was able to, my parents were able to teach me about manners, were able to tell me, like, if you don't understand something, there's ways you can fish out the situation where you can still be participating if you don't fully understand what's going on. You can be considerate, you can be driven, you can, any situation's an opportunity. Whereas I see a lot of people who, you know, remind me where I came from at these conferences, but the parents are talking for them. The parents are like, there was this one particular parent, I remember she came up to me after a talk I had given, and she's telling me all about, oh, it was beautiful, it was wonderful, and talking about all these great things I did. And her adult son, who she's there for, is standing right next to her, and he's not saying anything. And I figured, okay, maybe he's nonverbal, maybe, you know, he's a bit more delayed or something like that. A man gets in line and asks the man, like her son, like, oh, are you in line to talk to Alexis? Dude turns around, it's like, oh no, I'm just here with my mom. Like, just completely like polite and like everything, doing all the social quote unquote right things when interacting with this man. That I'm just like, why am I talking to you? If you're here for your son can advocate for himself.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I turned and I started talking to the son. I was like, did you enjoy the talk? How you know, how's your day going? Any other events at this thing you're going to? He tries to answer it. The mom keeps cutting him off and talking.
Oh, no.
And I was like, you cannot do that. Because you're teaching your son that he cannot advocate for himself. No matter his capability, no matter what you're doing, no matter his what he wants to do in life, you're showing that you have to be in control in order for him to be heard, and he's not being heard.
Yeah.
I chewed that mom out. I was like, you're telling me you loved my work, but you didn't listen to it if you're talking over him.
Yeah, that's good. I would have done the same thing if I was there with you. That is so important to actually let, and even from a young age, hey, like we see this with our youngsters, like our 3-4-year-olds. We ask them, what would you like to do? And you know, they can choose anything they want. It's not a choice from this or that. It's like they can choose what they want to do, and then we bring in concepts that we can help them, expose them to, or you know, like show them, okay, if you want to go outside to play in the water or whatever, we need to maybe put our shoes on. And that's an opportunity to work on self-help skills or whatever it is. But it's so important to not only listen to autistic advocates, but also to take it on and to let your child go with you and then experience it for themselves and tell you, is this what they want to hear? Because there are a variety of autistic advocates at the moment, and you can choose. You know, you get your Dan Jones, who I absolutely love, who's very hyper, and then you get people that are a little bit quieter, and then you get yourself, who's hilarious. So it's like,
well, it just shows you that you get all these different personalities wherever you look. Exactly. And it just shows that yes, we are different, but we are people. We are as diverse as the neurotypical community. Exactly. We are individuals, and it shows that the spectrum is just that, a spectrum. It's no one, you meet one person with autism, you only met one person with autism. Like, it's that person is going to be completely different and experience their autism in a completely different way than someone else.
Yeah, just like every other person. Maybe you have a sensory sensitivity, another person has a different sensory sensitivity. So yes, it's very important to find your tribe, find the people that you learn from, and that you can share with, and a support system. That's really important for me as well. So speaking about parents, what advice, other than let your child speak for themselves and choose for themselves, perhaps, would you say to parents that is good advice from your perspective?
Definitely, at least in my experience, this has helped me. And obviously my experience may not be anywhere close to the experience of those listening right now, but my parents pushed me to constantly be out of my comfort zone. And it was a trial. It was my mom and I went at it, and she became a bit of my trigger, because anytime I was pushed out of my comfort zone, she was the one doing it. But looking back, if she had never done that, I would not be anywhere close to the person I am today. I would not be able to handle situations that I'm not used to. I would not be able to work with people who didn't understand me or any. It really made me realize, like, even though I can take this world by the horns, I still have this understanding that this world was not made or is not structured for people like me. So I need to be able to interact and build myself up in spite of all these obstacles that are put in front of me. And she was able to, she very much encouraged my interaction in cross country running. Because of that, I'm able to push myself and realize the only competition I have is past me. How can I become better than Alexis of yesterday? How can I move on and move even further than I did before that? And granted, most of that was my brother tricked me into cross country. He was on the team. I loved my brother was my best friend growing up. And he was 5 years older than me. So he was about to graduate high school, and he knew I needed to be involved with something. So I went just immediately withdraw in and never leave my room. He tricked. He's like, oh gosh, I'm going to be busy with cross country, so we won't be able to hang out as much this fall, and I'm leaving. I was still signed up the very next day.
That's a good way of tricking.
Oh, he admitted, like, as he was leaving, he's like, by the way, I tricked you into cross country. Bye. Stayed with it for the next 7 years. My older sister got me into speech and drama, but my mother very much encouraged it. Choir, band, cheerleading.
That's a lot.
My mom was a coach of cheerleading, though, so that kind of was going to happen eventually, no matter what. But I was involved in all these things that, stereotypically people on the spectrum can't do, and she was constantly getting me out there, constantly getting me involved. And of course, it's a very much a stereotype at that time, is if your last name is Wineman, you were volunteered for volunteer work even if you didn't know it, just by being related to my mother. You are signed up to do volunteer work around the community, whether you know it or not. And you have to get your child involved in something. If they have a special interest, push it, like get them involved. Like if there was one kid who I met at a school tour. He had just moved to Montana from Chicago. He memorized an entire road map between here and Chicago because he wanted to know. So he got involved in Boy Scouts, and he got involved in navigating, and like he loved geography, and I think he's going to be graduating school soon, and he's top of his class, and you need to get them involved in a number of things. You need to make sure that they're not only they have a special interest and they're doing well with it, but they need to have a well-roundedness to them. So it's like if they're ever in a position where that special interest has nothing to do with what's going on, they still know how to handle themselves.
That's good advice. That's really good advice, because I feel like sometimes it's okay, we find a special interest and now that's the only thing we're doing. But what if we go to the beach and you can't take, like, let's say the special interest is coding, and you can't take your iPad to the beach? Then what? What's the next step? What's something else that they can be interested in?
I guess any other advice I'd have is if they have a coping mechanism or stimming, do not stop that. I've seen so many parents like, oh, my kid's spinning in circles is weird. I don't like it when they do it in public. Who cares about public image anymore? It's just like, if this helps them, let them do it. I hate going to grocery stores. It's such a sensory overload. I cannot deal with it.
Me too.
But
yes, let them stim.
I walk in circles. Like
Mm.
my house was very much built so you could walk around every room in the main floor and still continue. There's a divot in the floor of how much I ran that
Awesome.
lap every morning and every afternoon when I came back from school.
Mm.
But it helped me. The moment
Mm.
I started doing that, my mom saw there was a lot less stress, and I started doing it without even realizing it.
Mm. And your parents let you, which is awesome.
Well, they just, first off, they didn't realize, because again, I was not anywhere close to a girly girl or even like a girl with self-respect in high school. So I literally just threw clothes on and just walked downstairs. I was the first one ready for school because all I did was
Mm.
change and then go downstairs. And I would just walk in that circle until I had to leave, which would most likely I'd walk that circle for about an hour.
But you know, like the thing
And
is for me with stimming, sorry for interrupting you,
oh, no, go
Alexis.
ahead.
But a lot of the things that I feel like, and I feel like if there wasn't a diagnosis of autism, it would have been okay. But a lot of times people are like, oh, this child or individual is autistic. Now we need to focus on the stimming, which is like, if I get looked at under a magnifying glass, I would be so anxious. I would probably do a lot more of my stimming, which is okay because I wasn't diagnosed with autism, I suppose. So if somebody would constantly, like, let's say somebody's looking at me right here, I'm imagining it now, I would be so stressed and I would stim more, or I would.
Exactly, yes.
So I think that's one thing to consider.
No, it was stimming is not, you know, restricted to just people on the spectrum or people with
Mm.
neurological um, differences by any means. Like my boss does it, and
Mhm.
I see coworkers just do these little things, but because mine is so obvious and they know about my diagnosis, they just take it, like
Mm.
they take notice of mine more. And I called one of my coworkers out on it because she saw me in the break room just walking my circles one day on a very stressful day. She's like, "Why do you do that?" And I was like, "Why do you click your pen incessantly?" And she's like, "Because I'm stressed." I was like, "Same difference." It's
Same.
it's it's just my thing.
Mm.
And she's like, and I told her, like, if it's bothering you, I can find another room, but I can stop.
Mm.
I guess the last piece of advice I have is that you want answers. You want to know why your children or your friends or family with autism are so stressed. They don't know what to do. Like you don't, and you want to help. They're not going to know how you can help. They don't know
Mm.
how to verbalize, oh, this is what's happening in my brain, because they don't know how your brain works at all. They only
Mm.
have their own, like, they their brain is so wired differently that they don't know how you perceive the world around them. Odds are they think you're going through the exact same thing, you just handle it better.
Mm.
And because I like going back to my research for Miss Montana about my diagnosis, I went into those conferences and I learned more about myself than I ever thought was even. I didn't know autism had sensory problems, like came along with sensory issues. I didn't know that. I thought everyone dealt with that. I thought it was just strictly communication was my problem.
Mm. Oh, wow.
And it's you cannot just have your autistic child or friend or coworker and just be like, "What's your deal? What's wrong with you?" Because they don't know. They don't
Mm.
know what, in comparison to what's going on in your life, they don't have that
Mm.
point of view, so they can't. And that, like, if what are they going to say? Oh, the lights hurt. Like
Mm.
they know how ridiculous that sounds, so they don't want to
Mm.
admit that that's their big, that huge issue that's bothering them. My mom and I didn't realize the reason I hated grocery stores was until we went to a conference. The doctor up on the stage after I spoke, that they were the next presenter. They were talking about sensory issues. They were talking all about all this, and both my mom's eyes are getting so wide because we never. My mom looked at me. She's like, "Is that the reason why you hated going to the store with me?" And I was like, "Do you not have this problem?"
Oh,
I
wow.
never knew my mom didn't hear the lights or felt
Mm.
the changes in temperature so drastically like I did, or the squeaking of the carts felt like screaming and grating in my ears. Like
Mm.
I thought I was, I didn't realize I was the only one hearing all of this. and I was hearing it all at once.
And you only realized that later in life, like quite late, that that nobody else is going through. Well, not a lot of people are going through the same thing as you are.
And I have, I don't know, I forget the name of this particular autism trait, but I perceive all noise at the exact same volume. And so the squeaking of the shopping cart, the ringing of the lights, the misting of the vegetable thing, like that is all trumpeting through my head. I have no filter. I have to listen to it all. Either I tune everything out or I get it all. And my mom, she would have told you if I had my way, I'd have my earbuds in the entire, like my headphones in all the time. And I very rarely had a meltdown with those on. But same thing with, like, I'm very picky about the clothes I wear. I'm very, like, people on the spectrum can't ignore their clothes after a while. They're always constantly aware that something's on them. Temperature is a big deal. Taste of the food can send people on the spectrum crazy. It's all our senses are going haywire, and because of all this, and then of course we can't communicate it because we don't know what the people around us are feeling. We don't know how the people around us are dealing with all of this, and there is a wall of communication between neurotypical people and people on the spectrum that we just need to have this constant understanding of. You can empathize with us and you can be there for us, but you'll never really know what we're going through because there is no way we can possibly communicate everything to you. And more importantly, you'll never know exactly, you'll never be able to experience how we experience this.
That is very, very powerful. And I think that it's going to help a lot of parents see, okay, that makes sense because, you know, my child
and that's the rub of it though. It's like my experience and all these sensory issues, there may be people on the spectrum that never experience this at all. It's such a huge spectrum that maybe some person has the problems with their taste or like the texture of the food to the point where they can only really eat certain things. But yeah, textural wise with clothes or noise, like that doesn't bother me. I did not used to be as sensitive to light the way I am now. I did not used to be as sensitive to food or anything, and I'm still not very sensitive to food. Oh God, put anything in front of me. If it's not stapled down, I'll eat it if I'm hungry enough. But and I still don't have that problem, but I have met people on the spectrum that can really, they only eat applesauce. There's one kid who only ate applesauce because that was as much as they could handle, but they couldn't handle the smoothness of like pudding, but they couldn't handle anything as like, you know, like pasta or hamburger or anything like that. So they just survived off of a ton of vitamins and applesauce.
And do you think that for parents then when they realize this and they hear this, do you think the best way for them is to observe their child, understand that when the child shows any signs of the light or that it hurts them a lot more than they could ever experience or know, and then help them with that? So do you feel like, I'm speaking about like the more younger ones, like what do parents do when they realize, okay, my child is very sensory sensitive to specific things? From your perspective, what do you think is the best for parents?
Well, I work in childcare as of right now, a field I never thought I would be a part of. Another happy accident. But I'm just improving life. I have no plan whatsoever.
You're miming life.
It's just, I'm just in this box, and whoops, it wasn't a box. It was a preschool. Okay.
Oh, Miss Montana. Okay,
but
I love this.
My personal opinion, I feel like every child should be evaluated at some point. If you know, there are so many neurological things that can be going on in a child's brain because a child's brain is ever developing. Like even if autism is not something that they may be experiencing, maybe OCD or something is early onset depression, like that. These things are real, and just because it's not spooky, scary autism, something could be going on. So I feel like every child should be evaluated, just so the parents know that how they can better equip their family members in order to deal with the world around them. Because this society is not, they like to pretend it's one size fits all. It's anything but. If you don't have a clear-cut mental health ridden brain, like mental health perfect A-score brain, you're going to run into some problems. It's just, that's how the society has set itself up to be, and it's a real tragedy.
Yeah.
Because there are people who feel so lost. I feel lost at times, and I've come farther than I ever thought I would, but there are days where I'm just like, I'm not equipped for this today. I'm not equipped for the challenges in front of me yet. And the thing is but if I vocalize that, I'm being either dramatic, I'm playing the autism card. Oh, I've gotten that one before. That's fun.
Really?
And, oh yeah. So in order to combat that, I don't have my wallet on me, unfortunately, but I have a little thing of cardstock in my wallet that says the autism card.
Oh, do you?
I was like,
oh, I'll make a business card out of it.
Oh yeah, it wasn't even a business card. I literally just cut out a piece of cardstock, wrote the autism card on it, and that's in my wallet. If someone wants to give me guff about it, I'll just pull it out, hand it to them, and I'll walk away.
I love that.
Yeah. I don't want to communicate because it's going to be too hard. And as a person with autonomy and agency over myself, I have that right to just not do it.
Yes, you do. And I think
I recognize I have responsibilities. I am a contributing member of society. I do have responsibilities, but I'm just going to go about them differently that day. I'm not. People with autism are the greatest actors in the world. They go through life. Anyone with any sort of neurological difference, they go through life acting normal. And normalcy is the dumbest concept ever, because even people who are neurotypically just shiny speckless brain of the psychologists dream about.
Do we though?
They're not normal. No. They're not normal. It's like there's always going to be something about someone's brain that's going to react differently than their neighbors. And if someone had a normal brain, that'd be the most boring human being on the face of the planet. Which, if that was the case, then that technically make them the most interesting.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Maybe they'll be like one in a billion then.
Yeah.
So maybe that is something to strive for.
Being the most
to be boring
would actually in turn make you the most interesting.
Oh my word, that would be like a Truman Show kind of movie.
No, I was actually in a conversation with someone, and they were talking to me about autism, because what else can I be defined by? But they're asking me some questions, which is good. People, it's no one should be ashamed, like embarrassed or upset that someone's asking you about your autism. It means that that's a way of trying to understand you better. Unless, they're just being a dick, and then in that case, just be a dick back.
Just hand them the autism card.
Yeah, just hand them the autism card and be like, hey, contact my people. And one thing about people with autism is that we have a very efficient tree network. From Tree Network, my people will get in contact with your people.
Yeah, my people, call my people.
At least we have a people. You weird normal person.
What group are you in?
The mothership needs me. I gotta get out. But so they're asking me about it, and They're like, so are you, they asked me, are you more of a Rain Man or a Sheldon Cooper? I'm like,
No, they ask that.
and no, she was trying to, like, and I love
Oh,
laughing
okay.
about my autism.
Sorry.
You know, God gave me this so I can have material for my comedy.
Yes.
Well, that also, and you know, every person in childcare runs into some rude parents. And everyone in childcare can understand it's never the kids we have a problem with, it's always the parents.
That's true.
And one parent recently got so mad at me, and I wasn't picking up any of the social cues. I was just, all I understood was that, oh, she's just mad at me, she's blaming me for a problem. And she's screaming at me, and she, like, I was like, well, you know, it's not my decision, you know, I'm just the assistant director, it's, you know, like, it comes from the board. And she's screaming, she's saying it is my fault. Well, I was like, I can finally understand, like, nothing I'm saying is getting through, and that's fine. I'm saying all the things that I need to say. And she's like, I'm gonna pray for you. And I was like, thanks. Oh, that just made her even more mad. And I'm like, what is going on? That's a good thing to pray for people, right? And I'm just like, thank you. And she's like, what? I'm like, oh, huh? And then I'm both confused, and I'm like, okay. Anyway.
With that, with that conversation, did it affect you afterwards emotionally, or
it took 2 days, and I was like, oh, she was being sarcastic. She actually hates my guts. And I was like, okay, but you didn't. She can be as mad as she wants. It's not going to affect me when I go home at the end of the day. But, like,
okay, that's good.
Back to the friend who was talking. Like I said, I ramble. The friend who was talking, it's like, oh, you're a Sheldon Cooper, or are you a Rain Man? I was like, no, neither. You know, I'm an Alexis. I take that one for. But I'm ching, and she's like, well, the savant aspect of people on the spectrum portrayed on TV. I was like, and I told her, I was like, that can happen, but that is a stereotype. That is a very small percentage of people on the spectrum. And she's like, but it can happen. I was like, well, yeah, I guess it could technically happen with anyone. Anyone can be a savant. She's like, I had this thought, and I was like, okay, lay it on me. This should be good. And she's like, what if, let's say this person is on the spectrum? I was like, yes. And they're a savant. I was like, okay. It's like, and they're a savant in communications. I was like, okay. Do they have autism anymore? And I went home and I had a bourbon on that one. I was like, oh, Lord. How does that work? I was just sitting there just like,
yeah, that is quite a tricky.
Yeah, just like, if a person with autism is savant in communication, do they have autism anymore? And I'm like, oh. I mean, oh God, I gotta go back to school for this one. I don't know.
That is a good question. I mean, yeah, I think
I went home, I went back to work, and I smacked him in the back of the head. It's like, why did you do this to me?
Stayed up all night long.
It still haunts me. That was like 3 weeks ago, and I'm just sitting here like.
Well, luckily for my ADHD, I might forget about that, because otherwise it would bother me.
It'll haunt you later in life, though. You'll be in your rocker at your home, and you can't remember your grandkid's name, and that'll pop up, and you'll be like,
wait a minute, Alexis's conversation. I remember this. Anyways, okay, wait, Alexis.
The cooks will be in the kitchen. Be like, Carla's in the cooking sherry again. We gotta get her out of here.
Oh, Carla's back. She doesn't belong here. Wrong old age home for Carla, but anyway, she's back. Okay.
In a padded cell later in life because of that.
I'm gonna forget that you just said that. Probably gonna edit that part out, otherwise it's gonna stick.
No, so keep it in. We need an answer. Have one of your friends call in.
Okay. I'll keep it in, maybe.
But hey, if anyone gets on to you about like, oh, because if people get mad at me at my talks, they're like, you're making fun of autism. I was like, no. Making my autism. It's mine. I can do whatever the hell I want with it.
Exactly, you can. And you can also just put the autism card in. I'll edit an autism card in.
I need to figure out where I put that. I think my friend took it out of my wallet to show another person. Like thought it was hilarious, and I haven't seen it since. So
Alexis, do you have any upcoming projects or events that you wanted people to join in and have some fun with you, or
well, a lot of my projects with my autism are very comedy based. I I love having fun with, like, there's so many people out there that are like, this is a serious thing. And I was like, have you lived with someone on the spectrum?
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of
It's
laughing.
pretty funny at times. And so as of right now, it's just my current project that I would love to get off the ground, but there's no promises. Like, life is right now happening where a lot of us are still in recovery from the pandemic. So I'm still on damage control to a certain extent. Right now, I'm hopefully, I'm trying to buy a house. I'm trying to
Oh, that's
my
exciting.
apartment. I'm trying to successfully adult.
Oh, when you get there, will you please just send
I
some
just turned
notes through?
28 and I'm just like, I still don't know what the heck's going on.
Okay, well, I've got 10 years on you, and if you can you just send me your notes on how to adult? Please just send them on.
We'll compare notes. We're just you'll call back and I'll have like that crime scene wall of just red yarn going to and fro.
That would be awesome. Please just send me a photo.
One project I would like to do is I want to do a comedy podcast about living on the spectrum.
That would be amazing. Please.
I already have a title for it.
What is it? Can you share or no?
I'm so worried. It's so good.
Okay. No, don't share.
I'll tell you when we stop recording.
Okay.
But I'm really worried because it just stumbled on me one day and I'm just sitting there like,
oh, you have to do it then, eh?
I was just sitting there thinking about it and I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited about it. It needs to exist just for the title alone.
Yeah, I'm gonna be your biggest fan. I've had so much fun. Is there
I'll have you on as a guest.
But I'm not that funny, so
it's basically I just want to break the stereotype of just living on the spectrum. Oh,
what is that?
The spectrum.
Where are you living?
Get out of my swamp.
Somewhere in Montana. It's called the spectrum.
The Shrektum. The theme song will be All Star by Smash Mouth.
That's awesome.
No, I just want to break the stereotype. Now I can't talk at all. I'm back in speech therapy. Miss Sylvia Flanagan, my old speech teacher.
Oh, shit. But that is such a difficult surname for anyone going to speech therapy to say Miss Flanagan. I can't even say it.
Flanagan. Oh, there's so many stories I could tell about that woman.
Oh, shit. But she was nice, or no?
Oh, she was the best.
Okay, that's
She was great. She taught me how to say my R's. Because I still have a problem with those. If I get too excited, I'm back in the first grade, just but I understand what I'm saying.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, but she taught me how to do my R's by sucking pudding through a straw.
Really?
That sounds all you have to do is get the middle of your tongue to the soft palate in your mouth. And you have to do that by sucking in pudding through a straw because it takes a lot of force.
Oh, that sounds like an awesome speech therapy session.
Yeah, it was great. It was delicious.
Yeah. I am definitely gonna go and work on my R's later.
About that. And she was just like, "Oh, I know exactly what to do. You're ornery little cuss. You like sweets. Let's do this." It worked.
That is awesome.
But
I wonder if she's still practicing.
Anyway, back to my maybe sort of podcast. I hope to start one day. I really want to just break the stereotype that being on the spectrum is this tragic thing. And I'm like, no, it's what the person on the spectrum makes it and the support of those around them. I'm able to laugh at myself in spite of a lot of people I came across in my life. And I'm able to do it because of those around me who built me up and, taught me in sort to take the piss every once in a while. It's I'm sorry I'm cussing also, by the way.
No, this is awesome. This is exactly it.
I work with children and I'm not working today, so it's like I gotta get it all out before I go to work tomorrow.
And this is so beautifully said, because this is really what we should be doing with everything in life. Like, if it feels like it's getting a little bit too much, anything and everything, just lighten up.
Life is too short not to laugh at yourself.
Definitely.
You have to find joy, and if finding joy is making yourself the punchline, first off, that takes power away all of your haters.
Mm.
If you're laughing at yourself, what more can they say that you can't make more jokes about? It's that's how I dealt with bullying as a child. The moment I started making fun of myself, people backed off immediately.
Mm.
It took me way too long to find that out, unfortunately. But but you learn to be more happy because of it. It's like you're well aware of, okay, I don't communicate well, and I don't I have all these sensory problems. How can I have fun with this?
Yeah. Do an amazing podcast.
You end up becoming a lot happier because of it. And I'm luckily surrounded myself with a lot of people who can have fun along with me. And one of my friends I made here in Alabama, where I live now, which is such a difference from Montana, they unfortunately, and I don't like this word, but I'm not going to police people, they use the R word, retarded, a lot.
Oh, jeez.
And we do a game night every once in a while. And that slipped out, and he didn't even realize he said it. I just get all sullen and sad, and he just looks over and he's like, "What?" And I was like, you said the word." He's just like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Lex. I didn't mean it." And I'm just like, how could you? You know what I'm dealing with in life. How could you say that? I thought we were friends. And then he kind of realized I was making fun of him. And he's like, "Oh my God, get over it."
But he would never do it again, right?
Oh, he did it all the time.
Oh,
well, it's a habit. And I understand if someone gets used to saying it, and then I put down like, "Hey, I don't really like that word." As long as they try, I don't mind if they say it again, because stuff slips out. And I'm not the mom. I'm not gonna police them. I'm just gonna let them know. I'm like, "Hey, that wasn't cool."
Yeah.
But he's trying, and so anytime it slipped out, I'd be like, "You can't say that word. That's our word. You can't say that."
I think your humor is awesome, and I think it's needed, and the way that you communicate everything and anything is absolutely perfect. So I don't think there's anything wrong, and I really like that you are such an amazing advocate for anyone on the spectrum, but also neurotypicals, parents, other children, everyone else. I feel honored to have had this conversation with you. Thank you so much.
I've had so much fun on
Me
the phone.
too.
It's been a great time.